Yes! Oh, as soon as it landed, look at that. It had to be in there. They're the sort of ballsy casts that it takes sometimes. Beautiful wild bass. Just fishing with one of these Eco Gear bolts. Just rig weedless. That is so satisfying. Ah, get you going. So satisfying. And it could have been a jack. I sort of had my hopes up for a jack, but definitely not disappointed at all. That is awesome. Ridiculous cast. Probably wouldn't have got a jack back. Oh, go. Oh, dropped it. It's a good fish too. No. Oh, there's a big fish. Come on, hit that. There's one over there. Spoiled it. Come on, hit it again. He's still there. I'm watching him, mate. Come on. Mate, I'm shaking, mate. He was just flirting with it. Oh, yep, got it. Yeah! It's about 7:30. I still think there's a surface bite on here, so let's give it a crack. Oh, yep. Oh, straight up. Come here. Yeah. Take a look at this little cracker. Oh, there's my grip. I'll just throw it straight over the top of cover. He's brought some of the timber in with him. Keep his head out so he can't dive down. Oh, have a look at this. Second cast, don't you love it? I had to rip him straight over the top of all of that cover because I actually threw past the biggest part of the log, and often that's what it takes to get some of these fish. So I'm going to see if there's another one sitting there. Kind of ripped him out pretty quickly in hope that maybe I can get another shot at another fish if he's had his mate there as well. Oh, yep. Oh, got it. No. Come on. Still there. Got it now. Come on. Jesus. Yes! Got it! Oh, beautiful stuff. Come out of there, buddy. Get out of there. Estuary cod. What a letdown. Oh, you just desperately want Jack and you get an estuary cod. You know the feels. They still go hard, and they are gorgeous in their own right, and they are aggressive, but they're no Jack. Does break the fishing up a little bit though, which is nice. I just want to give you a look down his gob. They are a stunning fish in their own right. Look at that. Yeah, good. Well, you know you're doing the right thing if you get an estuary cod, because they all sort of hang out in the same zones, the jacks and the cod. They hang around structure and they'll try and run you back down into it. They'll run you into little holes and down around the rocks and things like that. So there's still a lot of fun, challenge to get in sometimes, especially the bigger ones. The bigger ones are nuts. Okay, go. Welcome back to another My Lure Box video. In this video I'm going to take you through the advantages of fishing from a kayak. I've got a tinny and a jet ski that I love taking offshore. The tinny's great in the canals and the estuaries and in the tight stuff. It's just a little crabbing tinny that I run with, but this kayak puts me at such an advantage when I'm fishing in this really skinny stuff, and the experience is just second to none in my opinion. I like fishing out of this thing more than anything. So I want to take you through why that is. Let me talk you through it as we cruise along this tiny little creek. I'm out jack fishing this afternoon, and I've had a little bit of interest, but it's really like a midday session, so I just thought I'd take 5 or 10 minutes just to talk you through some of this stuff. I'm at a massive advantage because I've got an electric motor, and if you can get an electric motor to go with your kayak, then it just frees your hands up, especially if it's really well balanced. This one I've got running through the center here, where you'd usually run like a sonar pod for a sounder, but the way that this thing works in the water, I'm going up against the tide and I can steer with my feet, so my hands are free nearly all the time to fish. So in terms of, you know, one of the key drawbacks I would say that people say about kayak fishing is that you're constantly paddling, but if you can organise yourself with the time in the tidal run, or depending on the wind, then you can be in a really good position to fish with a lot of stealth. So I want to talk about that, and I'm also going to talk about a couple of the little advantages that you can get when you're fishing that might help with your catch rates, given your profile and yeah, just how you move on the water. So if we're going to talk about stealth fishing, a lot of the bigger species that I chase in these creeks, whether it's bigger flathead, or right up the back, the bigger bass, the bigger mangrove jack, even Saratoga and barramundi, a lot of the time in this quiet water, they'll turn off if there's an outboard that runs through the system, and or if there's, you know, a lot of noise or bouncing and carrying on and hitting of hulls and slapping of water with hulls. But with a kayak, even if you're using a paddle and you're just gracefully just taking it really quietly, and you're not clanking about and that sort of thing, your approach is really well hidden, and that's one of the big advantages of fishing from a kayak that I've found over the years. The other thing is as well that you don't have that high profile on the water, so when I'm fishing and skip casting, this is what I love to do out of this, is just use my bait caster and skip cast plastics and things in for mangrove jack and bass especially. I can do it a lot better out of a kayak with a raised seat. So these kayaks with a raised seat just put you at the perfect position to see in under snags and things and be able to get that angle, so you're firing in and getting deeper than what you're probably going to be able to do with a tinny, especially if you're fishing out of a 4.5 or bigger, you know, like a deep V or something where you're elevated on that deck. This gives you a different angle. You can't use these obviously up past probably, I'd say, I don't know, Gladstone or
up past Bundaberg even. You've got to be a little bit careful, I'd say, obviously because of the crocs, but anywhere south of there is fair game, and it just it gives you a great option to be able to enter into some skinny water that really doesn't get the pressure. So the fish are generally really aggressive in this skinny water. They're easier to find often as well, because the amount of cover, like while I'm cruising through here, you can see the cover that happens to fall into these systems when you get right up the back. It's just the way that the fast flowing water, got him, fast flowing water just pulls the banks apart and the trees come falling in, and that is just perfect. Perfect for a fisherman. Just going to get through this little section here. Look at this. This is just heavenly, isn't it? That's got to be the best part. You just get yourself into these remote locations where it's so quiet and calm and still. Disconnect from everything is just as good as being, you know, a couple of nautical miles out offshore on a full glass out. This is just beautiful, and the wildlife is intense. You get birds all around you. You know, you see those lizards, goannas, and you know, even pigs. Some mornings I've been out nice and early and you'll see pigs in at the bank, kangaroos hopping along, feeding, drinking by the bank. So the experience in itself, with all of these native trees right over hugging in mangroves, it's just beautiful. So hopefully, if you haven't got yourself on a kayak yet, this video might be enough just to push you in the direction, even if you borrow a mate's or something like that, just to get out and experience it. And get on Google Maps, go and find a tiny creek, a little backwater creek, and take your jack fishing gear or your bass fishing stuff and get right up the back and enjoy a little bit of time on the water. If you're looking to get a kayak, there's a whole heap of them now on the market. I think I first started fishing when there weren't any plastic kayaks around, and I was out of a Canadian, you know, fiberglass Canadian canoe, and that was fabulous for years and years. But yeah, the options are just endless. So the things that I suggest if you're thinking about fishing and chasing fish out of a kayak, a raised seat with a back definitely helps you, gives you a little bit longer time on the water. You know, if you've got foot pedals with a rudder, then you know you can steer a little bit easier and you don't constantly have to be using your paddle. Full buster, just a big mullet. And you know, if it's nice and stable where you can actually stand up and fish at times, like if you have a look at this, I can stand up pretty well. There's no real dramas there, and fish out of it really easily. You know, then that's the high end of the kayak market. If you're just wanting to bash about and have something that you can throw into rock pools and cart from one pool to the other and fish like that, then you want something super light. And I've got a couple of really small kayaks that I still keep from years and years ago that I just can't throw out because they only weigh about 15 kilos, and you can just put little stainless mounts on them, and then just run a strap like you would a luggage strap over your shoulder and just carry it like, you know, a big duffel bag or something like that, and walk between spots. The other thing I've done is like mount big esky handles onto the front of my small kayak so that you can carry them and throw them really easily, things like that. You want rod holders and you want heaps of them, so I put 4 rod holders on all my kayaks so that I can mount GoPro cameras and just have my rods standing up if it's an open area. When it gets tight like this, then I have them lying down, generally like at my feet, at my fingertips, so I can pick them up and swap between them as I'm going and deciding on, you know, what lures I'm going to be throwing, things like that. You definitely want to get something that holds at least 2 of you in terms of its weight category, because you're going to end up having a little bit of gear as well. So I tend to look for something. For me, it was about a 160 kilo capacity, and that means that with your gear, you know we're close to maxing it out. So you're nice and high up off the water, and you're not taking on water and things like that. Alright, I think that should be just about it for some of these advantages. You know, the low profile, like I said, the angle so you can skip cast, the stealth definitely. I know that you can't cover as much ground, but if you do your research with Google Maps, there's plenty of creeks where you don't have to travel very far to get right into the thick of it like I am here, and get onto your really, really cool quiet spots where you feel like you're 100 miles from anyone and 100 miles from anything. And enjoy your fishing. One of the other great advantages of being in a kayak is you can get out of the wind, and you don't want to be out in an open area, on your kayak on a windy day, because you get blown all over the place. That's one of the frustrations. But if you're smart about where you choose to go, you can get out of the wind. It is blowing about 20 knots this afternoon. It's like about 20-25 knots of northerly out in the main area of this system, and you can hear it in the trees, but it is super quiet and cruisy down in here, and really, really enjoyable. So often if it gets really windy, I'm a little bit spoilt for choice. I'll come and get out of it and just sit up in these quiet little creeks. And you can still get real glassed out sessions out here when it's super windy out in that main channel, instead of blowing and bashing about out there. It's one of the great little options. I mean, if it does get windy, you should always have your kayak fitted out with stuff with flotation, and have a life jacket in, and the safety equipment that you need, depending on what state you're fishing in. And I've got a safety vest in the front there. But that's one of the beautiful things about getting away from it. It gives you more days on the water if you can handle it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you're after some kayak fishing action, you'll want to see hookups and fishing action, casting into heavy cover and things like that, then you make sure you check out my Kayakers Guide series. You can get them as downloads. They're also available as full-length DVDs that I can send out to you. So I'll put links to both of those DVDs, the Kayakers Guide to the Gold Coast, which covers a whole range of species that you can get up and down the east coast of Australia, and tips on how to catch them, and the lures to use. And then I've also got Giant Flathead in the Shallows, which is a full-length video on how to get after those really, really big, those mammoth crocodiles that get around on the sand flats and up our estuary systems on the east coast of Australia. Those are some fantastic resources to get a few tips. And I've also got a heap of stuff on this channel. If you type in my lure box and kayak fishing, you'll find a heap of my videos with mangrove jack, bass, big flathead, chasing brim, a whole range of species, whiting, getting after fish out of a kayak. So there's heaps of action there, but I just thought a video like this to maybe talk you through some of the advantages in case you've never really got into your kayak fishing, or added it to your arsenal. There's absolutely nothing wrong with fishing out of a tinny, and I love that, and I spend a lot of time, probably more time in my tinny than anything, chasing jacks. But yeah, if you're yet to spend a few sessions getting through those early sort of teething issues of fishing from a kayak and changing your style up, I think a lot of guys that go to kayak fishing and then explore and uncover some spots, they don't go back a lot of times. After they've tasted it, they'll hang on to their kayak and keep fishing from it where they get the chance. Alright, we might wrap it up there. I hope you're enjoying your fishing and getting excited for the summer that's coming. I certainly am. I'm frothing, getting my skip casting going, and trying out a heap of lures. So there's lots of videos coming with that sort of stuff, so stay tuned to my channel, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.